Today we are going to be looking at the Baby Blacephalon deck. In this video I am going to take you through the basic concept of the deck, deck lists and ways you can build the deck, strategy of the deck, how to get set up, how to win, matchups in the current Rebel Clash format. We're going to take you through how to play each matchup and what your matchup is like. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? We'll take you through all that. We'll take you through possible techs that you can put in to try and swing some of these matchups, or possible different tech cards you can put in to win against the current meta. Now I'll take you through a conclusion on why I think Baby Blacephalon is one of the best decks in the format. Now, if you already know how to play this deck, you think, I don't need this, check down in the description below for timestamps that will take you straight to the deck list or certain specific matchups that you want to know about. Now, first of all, we're going to take a look at some of the main cards in this deck. We do, of course, have Baby Blacephalon. Your attack that you're going to be doing for most turns is Fireball Circus. For 3 energies, you can do this attack, and then it does 50 damage times the amount of fire energies in your hand. Now, at first glance, that might not seem that great, but with other cards in the format, that can be a great big powerhouse. We mix this card with Welder, so that we can get 2 attachments on the Blacephalon, plus drawing your cards. And on top of that, you get your manual attachment. So that is your Blacephalon set up in 1 turn, even though it requires 3 energies to get going. We run this with cards such as Fiery Flint, Fire Crystal, and Energy Retrieval to enable us to get lots of fire energies in our hand at one time to be able to hit those big knockouts. Now, the reason that Blacephalon is good is that it is a 1 prize card attacker and it can hit for extremely large numbers. So even though it is only giving up 1 prize, you can easily knock out Pokemon GX, Pokemon Tag Team, and Pokemon V in 1 turn, which is exceptional. And a main way to win in this game is to win the prize trade. To win, you need to take 6 prize cards. Baby Blacephalon is giving up 1 and is probably knocking out one of the big guys in the format. It is great. Now, a basic strategy that I like to go with in this deck is to try and get yourself a knockout on something big with Baby Blacephalon first off the bat. Try and knock out a Tag Team or a VMax, for example, and take 3 prize cards. Now you can then follow that up with Cramorant V, do a spit shot on a Dedenne on the bench, get yourself another 2 prize cards, and then finish up your game with Blacephalon GX and his GX attack to take your last remaining prize card. You can do this in the other order as well. Start off your game with Blacephalon GX, take 1 prize card, then take your knockout with Baby Blacephalon and then Cramorant, for example. But I prefer to get the last prize card at the end in certain matchups because you don't want to have a GX on the field when they can take 1 prize card instead of 2. That'd be preferable for me. A lot of the times the way this deck went is quite simply by getting set up fast and hard. If you go second and your opponent only has 1 Pokemon in the active, quite a lot of the time you can actually just straight up donk them, your opponent doesn't even get a game. This deck has kind of seemed like a red aggro deck for those who play other card games, but there is a little bit more strategy to it sometimes. It's like, although a lot of the strategy is pretty linear and to the point, there's usually a minimum of 4 steps you're going to need each turn. That's 1, getting yourself an attacker, 2, getting Welder, 3, getting the energies you need in your hand, and 4, attack, quite simply. For this deck to win, you're going to need to probably do those 4 things each turn. You might not need the Welder some turns if you're just going to be attacking with your Blacephalon GX, for example, but most turns of the game you're going to try and want to get Welder. That is, however, the basic strategy of the deck. You're hitting fast, you're hitting hard, you're knocking out those big GX Pokemon, taking more prize cards than your opponent, hopefully getting set up quicker than your opponent, because Blacephalon doesn't need to evolve, your opponent may need to evolve, they may need 2 turns to get all their energy attachments they require, whereas you can get this done in 1 turn with your Welder, hit with a 1 prize card attacker, and hopefully win your game. Now, to show you how we actually achieve this, I'm going to take you through a couple of deck lists that we've got, why we've got those cards, and let's go. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the deck lists. Now, this one, I'd say, is a basic starting point for the deck list. This one is more thinking about consistency, and I'll just take you through all the card counts here. Now, we've got our main draw engine here, which is Jirachi. We're running 3 of these. You could run 4 if you really wanted to, but 3 is probably going to be enough. Your main draw engine for this deck is Stellar Wish. you're going to be looking at the top 5 cards of your deck and revealing a trainer card. So off of this Stellar Wish, you're probably angling to get yourself a Welder or a Fiery Flint if you're in the early game, for example, or anything you need to continue on. So you're running 3 Jirachi. We've got 4 Blacephalon in here. You could reduce this to 3 and put in an extra trainer card or a different tech kind of Pokemon, but we'll go into that more into our second deck list. Running 1 Cramorant V, ideal for our strategy to do spit shot onto the Denny on the bench. Running 1 Blacephalon GX, mostly for this GX attack, a great way to finish off and win the game. We've got our Zacian V to get our consistency, to get some extra draw. Mewtwo, who I find is great in this deck, with your combined with your Scoop Up next, you can get yourself an extra Welder back, or a Choreo for some more draw with his ability as well. Now, for most of your Blacephalon lists, well, you're going to be running 4 Fiery Flint. You need to run 4 Fiery Flint, and you're going to need to run 4 Fire Crystal as well. Right, you can run 2 or 3 Energy Retrieval in this because we're focusing on consistency. We've got 3 Energy Retrieval in here to get a lot back. 1 Ordinary Rod to allow you to get Pokemon and energy back into your deck. 4 Quick Ball, you're going to need this to get all your Pokemon. You can get your Jirachis, your Dedennis, you're all good off of that. Did I say about Dedenne? We run 2 Dedenne. You need Dedenne for a little bit of extra push. You don't want to bench them too often, but you need some more draw. 4 Scoop Up Net, you could reduce this down to 3, but I personally like 4 to get your Jirachis, Blacephalons, Mewtwo's back up. It's great for Mewtwo if you've already benched them, bring them back up. You don't know if you're going to get a Welder. Put them back down, do Jirachi Stellar Wish to get you a wee Welder off that. 4 Switch, you could run 3, but in this one, as I said, it's mostly going for consistency, so we're running 4. 1 Heat Factory, you're always going to want to run this, some extra draw, great stadium. Ultra Space, to help you get out your attackers, you're always going to run an Ultra Space in your deck. 4 Welders, main card apart from Blacephalon in the deck, you need this pretty much every turn. 2 Escape Boards for your Jirachis. Make your Jirachi be able to retreat for free, no bother. And in this one, we are running 14 energy, 14 fire energy. That's the basic layout of this deck. You can make it a little less consistent by putting in more text, which is arguably better, but this is a good basic starting point for the deck. So what you're going to want to do, you want to start out with your Jirachis, get a Stellar Wish off in the early games, get your Fiery Flint to get your 4 fire energies in your hand, welder these onto your Blacephalons, and hopefully have extra fire in your hand, either with Fiery Flint, or if you discarded them earlier off of, say, your Heat Factory or something like that, use your Fire Crystals, use your Energy Retrievals, get all those energies in hand, do your Fireball Circuits, and hopefully get a big knockout with discarding those energies. Finishing up after that, Spit Shot on a nice Dedenne on the bench, then Blacephalon GX, using that GX attack to win the game, or just killing everything with your Blacephalon. Right, I'm going to take you through a different list now. Let's go have a look at a different way to play this. Now, this is the list I've more been playing at the moment. You can see a few different cards in here. So we've still got our 4 Blacephalon. We've actually got 4 Jirachi in this version, but you could bring that down to 3. But I'd rather have 4 in this version because you've got a few different trainer cards in here. 1 Pokemon we've put in instead this time is Victini Prism. I do like to have Victini for the end game. He's a good way to attack without having to get additional energy. If you're at the end of the game, you've probably got most of your fire energies in your discard already. So if you just welder onto Victini, he manages to hit for a lot of damage like Blacephalon without having to dig for additional energies into your hand. Plus, he will get all those energies back into your deck, so you've got plenty of energies to draw into to be able to hopefully get another final KO at the end to win off the game. I prefer him over Victini V. Personally, I don't like to have another GX. Well, it's not a GX, it's a V card that gives up 2 prizes. I find Victini Prism is a lot better than Victini V. In this, we are running Adventure Bag. This is a good way to search your deck in the early game to thin out your deck and get the tools you're needing. Because in this deck, we are running Beespringer. I really like Beespringer. It is good against any GX deck. If you're going up against PikaRom, Mewtwo Mew, anything like that, if you Beespringer and manage to get a KO on a GX, you're going to probably win the game. That's part of the reason why we're running 4 Jirachi in this deck. Actually, let's show off the nicer Jirachi. I got one of the promos, yeah. Because there's a few more little pieces of the puzzle that you'd want to get for this. You want to get that adventure bag or that Beast Bringer in your first turn if you are up against a GX deck, and that might be a bit more difficult to do if you've got less Jirachis and you're not sure you're going to get them. Some other changes are we're down to 3 switch rather than 4. That's fair, that's not too big a change. We've also added in 1 boss's orders. Now, this can be switched for Great Catcher, and you'd probably be better off with Great Catcher. I've been hit or miss with boss's orders. I need to do some more testing on it. It's good to have it in theory, but most of the turns when you feel that you're going to want a boss's order, you also need to welder. So it feels like I need to do 2 supporters in 1 turn, and you just can't do that. So in a lot of situations, you feel Great Catcher would be better, but it has won me a few games. We've also reduced our energy count down to 13 rather than 14, and that's quite negligible, but that is mostly because we've got the Victini Prism there. He's got a way to bring back all those energies, so it's fine to reduce down those energies to add that in a little bit. We have also reduced down our energy retrieval count to 2 rather than 3, just to have a bit more space. But if you feel you could get away with 3 Jirachis, that's fine. You could up that to 3. You could add in a second skateboard, for example, or a 4th switch if you really want that, or another tech Pokemon. That's it. Most of the basis of the deck is going to be the same no matter what you do. You can tweak a few cards here and there for techs. And as we go through the matchups and thing, we'll go through some other alternative cards you can have. Say, for example, if you don't want Mewtwo, you maybe want to run a Palpad or something like that instead. Or you could ditch down a Blacephalon, go down to 3 Blacephalons and have an extra Pokemon or an extra skateboard or an extra card that you really feel that you need. So let's go ahead and I'll take you through all the matchups. Your opening hand. If you have a Jirachi, he's going to be your active Pokemon. In your active spot, you preferably want to start with Jirachi or a Pokemon that can easily retreat. You do not want to start Dedenne GX, for example. Sometimes you don't have the luxury of this, however. You get what you get. If you only get an Oricoro, you only get a Dedenne, you're going to have to start them and make do with it. But preferably, try and start with a 1 prize attacker or someone who can easily retreat. Someone that'll be useful to you in your field. If you have a Zacian V, for example, you can start him. That's fine, because you're going to be using the ability at the end of the first turn anyway, but it would be preferable if he wasn't on the bench straight off the bat. You don't know what you're going to be up against. You could be up against Blacephalon and they're going to get an easy knockout the next turn and take 2 prize cards off of you for no reason. Turn 1, you're going to want your Jirachis. Whether or not you start with Jirachi, hopefully in your hand you've got something such as a Quick Ball to try and get Jirachi. Stellar Wish is your key draw engine in this deck along with Welder to be able to get all the cards you need to get the combo. Now, we're going to be wanting to do Stellar Wish to try and get our Welder, but before we do that, preferably we want a Fiery Flint. Fiery Flint gets you 4 energies from your deck. If you get those 4 energies, that is 4 less cards for Jirachi to see off of Stellar Wish. You've thinned your deck effectively and you're making it more likely to get one of those trainer cards that you actually need to do this. So preferably you want to try and get yourself a Fiery Flint first, and then you can get yourself something like a Quick Ball in turn 1 to try and get yourself an attacker, or get yourself a Welder for turn 2. But be wary of that sometimes because your opponent can Marnie you, or even reset stamp, but likely if it's turn 1, you went first, your opponent may Marnie you if you've got those fire energies in your hand. They'll be expecting you to get set up in the next turn. But by the end of your first turn, it would be preferable to have an attacker or 2 in the field, and preferably 1 or 2 Jirachi. I like to have, say, 2 Jirachi, 1 Blacephalon on my board at the end of the first turn. And depending on what you're up against, you can go for your Zacian V if you'd like to draw 3 extra cards. I don't tend to like to do this against decks such as Dragapult, for example, because I'm expecting them to just do the Marnie, so I've drawn those extra cards and I'm just going to lose them straight off the bat anyway. But if at the end of the first turn you haven't got an attacker, it is not the end of the world if you are going first. You do still have your next turn, and if you've got a Jirachi or 2 on the field, you've got a couple of Stellar Wishes to hopefully get the cards you need to draw into your attacker. You've got Ultra Space, you've got Quick Balls, you will hopefully get one. And it only takes 1 turn to get set up in this deck. Sure, it'd be preferable to get an attacker first on your first turn, but if you miss him, it's okay. You can still get your attack off on your second turn and take prize cards. Now, moving on to turn 2, assuming that you went first, you're going to want to try and keep 1 or 2 Jirachis on the board every turn of this game. As I said, Jirachi is one of the main ways in this game you will draw. And you need to do your 4 steps. As I've explained earlier, your 4 steps are get a welder, get an attacker, get energies in your hand, and attack. How you're going to do this depends on what you have got. Fiery Flint is the best way in the beginning game to get energies into your hand. You are thinning your deck, which is great to get you the resources that you require to get set up. Plus, you're getting 4 energy. 4 energy is great. That is enough to welder to do your manual attachment plus an extra energy for your attack. And no doubt off your welder or any other draw cards that you may get, you will get something good. You will hopefully get more energy. You might get another Fiery Flint, you might get a Fire Crystal, an energy retrieval, and then hopefully that will get you enough energies to get the knockout. Or some turns, instead of Blacephalon, you might go for Cramorant if you see, oh, there's a Dedenne GX on the bench. That is the main thing Cramorant is for. Get that Dedenne on the bench. Now, if you are going second, most decks in the game, you do want to go first, but Blacephalon is one of those nice decks where going second isn't that bad. I love it when you go second and you manage to get a donk on your opponent's Pokemon. It is just such a great way. Blacephalon is one of those few decks that I feel if they go turn 2, they can still get set up and do a nice big attack off the bat. But of course, this does depend how your starting hand is. If you've got Jirachi, you're in a good place. If you started with Mewtwo, Dedenne, and you've got no welders or nothing to welder onto, you're not going to have a good time. But going second is not the end of the world. Seeing as you can't use a support on your first turn, you can't welder on your first turn anyway, you're just trying to get your board a little bit set up, get some of your Pokemon out, thin your deck a little bit. Turn 2, you can go crazy, you can get all the pieces of the puzzle you need and possibly even win the game that turn. Now, if you are going first on your second turn and you are against, say, a GX deck or a VMAX deck, it is generally not essential that you take a KO this turn, so it's okay if you spend an extra turn maybe getting your board a little bit more set up, get yourself a Zacian on the board, draw some more cards, for example. But a lot of the time, if you do manage to take a KO on one of their Pokemon, if they're GX that they're going to be attacking with the following turn, you can win the game. But a lot of the times it is not essential because you will be generally winning the prize trade. Missing that one turn, they will hopefully only take 1 prize card off of you, and the following turn you'll take 2 or 3, making sure that you are still in the lead to win this. Most people with this like to just go heavy-handed, go quite hard. Sometimes it's better to take a step back, try and just get more set up board, think about the long game rather than rushing on your second turn, putting down a Dedenne, trying to get all the cards you need when you might not even get all the pieces you need to the puzzle, and you've just put yourself in a slightly worse position for later on in the game. You've got another Pokemon on your bench that is an easy KO target for your opponent. It'd be better not to bench that Dedenne until later in the game, unless knocking out that one GX tag team Pokemon would massively get rid of their strategy. For example, if it is a PikaRom and they've got 5 energies on it, fair play. Go heavy-handed, get that knockout, then you'll probably definitely win that game. But in certain situations, it might be better to take a little step back, not push too hard. You really need to read the board and figure out, should I be going for this? Now, the positive matchups for this deck are PikaRom, definitely. Mewtwo and Mew GX, Welder Box, ADP Zacian, and any kind of like speed Zacian type deck. Those are generally your positive matchups with this deck. Your bad matchups, the ones you're going to struggle with, are Obstagoon, ADP Spiritomb, Dragapult VMax. And now we're going to be going into detail about why these matchups are good or bad, ways to play the matchups, and certain tech cards that you can use to try and help yourself in the matchup if you're particularly worried about that one matchup. Now, the first matchup we're going to look at is quite a positive one. Well, it's a very positive one. It's what I'd say is probably your best matchup is Pikachu Zekrom Tag Team GX. This one is always going to be in your favour, mostly because their main attacker does give up 3 prize cards, and they've only got 240 health. 240 is pretty easy for Blacephalon to hit, so you're going to do great in this. There's a couple of different methods you could do in this matchup to win the game. You can knock out 2 tag team Pokemon, and that is all you need to do. You've taken 6 prize cards. You can knock out one of their PikaRoms, Cramorant to get a Dedenne in the bench, because most likely they will have benched a Dedenne at some point in this matchup, and then finish off with your Blacephalon GX. The only thing with doing it in that order is you might want to do it in the opposite order to that, because your opponent does run Reset Stamp. You need to be wary of that for this matchup. Something to keep in mind with this is to try and have at least a minimum of 3 Pokemon on the board at all times. This is because of PikaRom's GX attack. You do not want them to manage to get off their GX attack with the additional energies and they can knock out a Blacephalon and a Jirachi, and if you've got nothing else on the board, you're not going to do well. So in your first couple of turns, you're really going to want to push to make sure you've got multiple Pokemon on your bench. If you do, then you should be in a good situation. If you see your opponent is getting set up with that PikaRom and they have got 5 energies on that PikaRom, or the next turn they're going to get those energies, those additional energies to do that GX attack, you're going to want to, if you can, try and push and get a knockout on that PikaRom. It is not the end of the world if they get the GX attack off. They are only taking 2 prize cards, and the next turn you could follow that up by taking 3, but they can massively thin your field by doing that. For example, they could take out 2 Jirachis doing that, and if you've got no other way to get another Jirachi, no Stellar Wishes for the next turn, you're going to struggle to get the pieces that you need to get attacking. You might not get your Welder, you might not get your Fire Crystal that you need to actually get the KO, so it's important to try and make sure you've got multiple things on the board, or get rid of their PikaRom before they can hopefully do any damage to your bench. A way around this is to take in a Mew. I don't personally run Mew, but because I think this matchup's pretty positive anyway, you can usually win without Mew, but if you are worried about it and you want to definitely win against this, Mew is a great addition to add in for this matchup. Now, sometimes it's not possible to knock out 2 tag teams against this deck. Your opponent is likely going to start now with Bolton V, attach 1 energy to him, and then try and get the PikaRom set up. So likely you're going to be taking 2 prize cards off the bat. But that's not a bad thing. You take those 2 prize cards off the Bolton, attack him with your Blacephalon, then next turn they're probably going to be attacking with a PikaRom. They're going to be, maybe even get 2 knockouts, they might get their GX attack off. That's okay, you can probably then knock out that PikaRom, that's you taking 5 prize cards, and then all you need is your Blacephalon GX to finish up the game. It is incredibly difficult for them to actually win. There's not really too much to cover in this one, it's a pretty easy one. They can have a big charm in their deck to try and give PikaRom a little bit more extra health, so another additional tech if you wanted to could be a Tool Scrapper to try and get rid of some of their tools, but that's not really essential. Or a Marshadow to bounce away their Thunder Mountain, but you run a couple of your own stadiums anyway, so it's not really that important. Honestly, I don't think you need to tech for this matchup unless you're really worried about it and you think the only thing you are going to face is PikaRom. Then feel free to go for it, but you should naturally win anyway, unless you start with Dedenne and then you can't get yourself a Jirachi and you can't get set up and they take some easy prize cards on GX Pokemon with their GX attack, for example. But most of the time you're going to be winning this. This is probably a 60-40, 70-30 matchup in your favour for Blacephalon. Now the second deck we're going to look at, also a positive matchup, is ADP Zacian, and in this I'm going to cover straight Zacian as well. Might as well cover them off in the same section. This is obviously a positive matchup because Zacian unfortunately is weak to fire. You are going to be blowing him up, no bother. Even if Zacian has Metal Goggles, you still knock him out for 3 energies being discarded. Metal Frying Pan can be a bit more of an issue, but he still only has 220 HP base. That's easy for you to knock out, even if you don't hit them for weakness. That's an easy number. You're knocking out PikaRoms, you're knocking out VMaxes in one shot, so you can still knock out Zacian even if they've taken away their weakness. The thing you really need to watch out for in this matchup though is if they get off the ADP GX attack and they are taking extra prizes. The way Blacephalon wins is because it's a 1 prize card deck most of the time, but if they're using ADP's GX attack and then every time they knock out a Jirachi or a Blacephalon they're suddenly taking 2 prize cards, that can become a massive issue. That is going to be the way that they will probably win that game against you. And quite frankly, them taking 2 prize cards off for Jirachi or Blacephalon against any ADP is just quite scary, quite frankly. It's like, you're getting 2 prize cards for knocking out a 70 HP Pokemon? Like, no, please no. So a good strategy for this is what I like to do is either before or even sometimes after ADP has done their GX attack, you're going to want to get the KO on them. If you can KO the ADP before they get their GX attack off, that is great. That is frankly phenomenal. You'll probably win the game. That is great. You've taken 3 prize cards from that. you'll hopefully get an easy KO off a Zacian, so that's an additional 2 prize cards. Then you just need to Blacephalon GX, do that attack, or take another knockout to win the game. It should be pretty easy at that stage. Even if your opponent gets the GX attack off, that's fine. That means they've done their GX attack. Okay, they're going to be taking 2 prize cards when they knock out a Blacephalon. But they've done their GX attack. Hopefully now you can one-hit KO that tag team the next turn. So you've taken 3 prize cards. It may be a little bit difficult to do it, but I found in most situations like that, I have been able to get enough energy into my hand to be able to get the KO on that tag team, meaning you take the 3 prize cards. Your opponent will then come along next turn, say they kill Blacephalon, taking them 2 prize cards. You're still ahead in the trade because you've got that initial knockout on the ADP. If you only got the initial knockout on a Zacian, you'd be matching and they could swing it into their favour. If you don't manage to get the KO on ADP, either before or after they do their GX attack, you're going to be struggling. That is when your opponent can swing it into their favour and they're more likely to win. If you don't get that KO in that one turn, they will retreat him. No matter what happens, they will get retreated. They could either get healed or just straight up retreated and they're going to be attacking with Zacian. And if they do that, they attack with their Zacian, they get a knockout, they've taken 2 prize cards when you've probably taken none. Therefore, it is massively swung in their favour. Sure, you'll knock out the Zacian next turn, but they're going to get an easy KO on your Blacephalon, on your Jirachi, and they're going to be ahead of the prize trade for the rest of the game. You really need to get the KO on that ADP first, or a long shot, they don't get an ADP out at all, they just go straight Zacian and you're knocking out the Zacians first. That's fine, because they don't have the ability to get the extra prize card then, but most likely they'll have that ADP out. Now, I'm not going to lie, I've done this a couple of times, it's quite cheeky. A way I like to win this matchup personally is, like I'm saying, you need to get the KO on that ADP. What's even better than just getting the KO on that is when you get the KO on that and you have a B-stringer attached. You knock them out, you take 4 prize cards, and then all you need to do for the rest of the matchup, you knock out one Zacian for 3 energy discards, and boom, that's you, that's one game. Spit shot at the Denny on the bench, that's game. Taking 4 prize cards because you've got a B-Springer is insane and makes the matchup so much better. Now, if your opponent's got their ADP GX attack off, or even if they don't, I don't particularly like to bench GX Pokemon in this matchup. The reason I don't like to do that is because if they get that GX attack off and they knock out your Dedenne, your Oricorio, your Zacian, then that's them getting an easy 3 prize cards. Now, for straight Zacian, you're going to have a pretty positive matchup as well. They don't have the ADP to take off the extra prize card if they're knocking you out. So the maximum they're going to be taking is 1 or 2 prize cards rather than 2 or 3, which is great. You're still hitting Zacian for weakness. They may run a metal frying pan, but it's usually metal goggles. But even if they've got that weakness, you're probably going to do pretty fine. Dog. Thing you need to worry about in this is the Jirachi and Mr. Mime combo. So they can be pulling extra prize cards. That is the way they're going to pull it back a bit more. They could be getting more prize cards than you are expecting. They're probably going to get set up pretty efficiently. So if you don't get set up, they can take it from under your feet. You got to be careful. You got to make sure you do get set up and you do take those KOs, preferably in the big guys. But overall, you should be doing pretty well against it just purely because of weakness. It's a shame it's weak against fire. It is a very good card. It's an exceptionally good card. But you do hit it for weakness, and that can just swing the matchup mostly into your favour most of the time. Next, we're going to be looking at Obstagoon. You see Obstagoon, I'm going to want to cry in a corner. Frankly, Obstagoon is your worst matchup. You're not going to do well against Obstagoon. The reason for this is Obstruct. Basic Pokemon cannot damage Obstagoon, and all of your attackers in this deck, guess what, are basic. You do not run any evolution Pokemon at all to get around that. One method to try and win against this is to try and KO their Pokemon before they get set up and actually get Obstruct off. Stage 2 decks in Pokemon are inherently inconsistent to some extent. They need to get their basic Pokemon, they need to get Rare Candy or evolve over a couple of turns to actually get their Pokemon out. Get 2 energy attachments, not just 1 for them to get this attack off. And then they have the lock up. So with Blacephalon, you are known for being pretty consistent. You have a lot of consistency cards. You got a decent amount of draw to blow things up. It's speed and power this deck is all about. So you can try and get rid of some of their Zigzagoons before they can get evolved. But that method's only going to work for a small fraction of the time. Most of the time, regardless of this, they're going to be able to get an Obstagoon, they're going to be able to get Obstruct off, and that's where the issues come into play. Your best bet for this matchup is Cramorant V and Blacephalon GX. Now, Cramorant can hit the bench. Cramorant is a great way to get around the Obstruct lock. If you've got Sableye bench, for example, that'd be nice to snipe him, and you can get rid of some of their Jirachis or things like that. But the issue with Cramorant is that once you get rid of everything on the bench, you are stuck with that Obstagoon obstructing in the active, and then you have no way to actually knock out that Obstagoon. You've got yourself stuck into the Obstruct lock. And that is why Blacephalon GX is good, and I think probably one of the best methods you have got to win this matchup. Now, you're going to be using Blacephalon GX's first attack for the Burn and Confusion. Burn is negligible. Sure, it's nice to get a little bit of damage on it, but it's extremely unlikely you're going to get a knockout with the Burn. What you're really after here is the Confusion, a way to break that Obstruct lock. Next turn, your opponent is going to have to try and get a way to retreat in order to attack without being confused. They probably will have this, but it makes it so that they have to draw more cards, and as I said, stage 2 decks are a bit more inconsistent, so they may not be able to draw those cards, or they may have had to discard them earlier in the game, may have had to get rid of some switches and things early in the game to get set up and get that lock off. If they do not manage to retreat, they're going to have to try and hit through Confusion, so it's a 50-50 chance whether they actually do their attack, or if you manage to break the Obstruct lock. If you manage to break that lock, you can retreat your GX and then attack with anybody else you want. Cramorant, Baby Blacephalons, knock out that Obstagoon. You can hope at this stage they do not have another Obstagoon ready to attack. If they do, it sucks, but then you can use Blacephalon GX again to try and get them confused so they cannot keep the lock up every turn. What you're trying to do is make it as difficult as possible for them to keep this Obstruct lock on the go each turn. Mewtwo can also be very helpful in this matchup. You bench him, use your scoop up net to pull him back up, and then you can put him back down and grab yourself, say, a Boss's Orders, for example, to break the Obstruct lock that way, bring up something from the bench, attack them, or bring up an Obstagoon on the bench, attack them, knock them out, and then you've only got hopefully one Obstagoon to deal with to use the Blacephalon GX and get them confused and hopefully not attacking it and locking you. Now, I personally do not think it is worth it to tech for this matchup. It is a very niche, small deck in the meta at the moment. If you're really concerned about it and you want a better matchup, you can maybe look at these to make it a little bit better for yourself, but I really do not think it is worth it. There's no space in this deck to add in an evolution line. That will just break your consistency. If you tech for this matchup, you're going to make your matchups for all the other meta decks so much worse, and in reality, that is not worth it. You're better to stay consistent and have good matchups against them and take the loss against Obstagoon, unfortunately. Now we're going to take a look at Dragapult VMax. On the face of things, you'll be like, great, a VMax deck, I can knock them out, take 3 prize cards, this must be positive, right? No, wrong. The reason for this is Dragapult VMax does bench damage, and it's not just bench damage, it is damage counters. You can't simply just do Mew and think, oh that's fine, I'll sort it. Nah, Mew does nothing. The reason this is bad is because its attack does 130 damage, so that is enough to knock out your Blacephalon. Okay, that's not the end of the world, everything can knock out Blacephalon. 130, that's not a lot of damage. 120 health on Blacephalon, he's going to get knocked out all the time. But the issue is that he then does 50 damage to the bench. How much health has your Jirachi got? Oh, 70. That's not too great, but you're like, that's fine, it's 2 turns. It's 2 turns to get him knocked out. But on top of that, they run Galarian Zigzagoon and Giratina. So basically, for one attack, they're probably going to be taking 2 prize cards. And you're like, oh, that's not great. And on top of them just taking 2 prize cards, they've knocked out your Jirachi. They've knocked out your draw. You're not going to do well. Right, so what are we going to do in this matchup then? Well, we'll have a look. First off the bat, be very, very, very careful with your GX drops. Like, I don't like to bench Oricorio GX in this matchup. The reason for that is it has 170 HP. They go and do their attack, put 50 HP damage onto him on the bench, and then they can bring him active with a Fianny, a Boss's Orders, get a knockout. That's 2 prize cards they've taken, but with them doing the bench damage as well, they might take 3 prize cards that turn. You don't want to risk that. If they take 3 prize cards in a turn, you're gonna lose. You are massively going to lose. The same goes for Blacephalon GX. I only like to put him at the end of the game if I can win by just taking another prize. I really do not like risking having a GX on the field because it just gives them the opportunity to take 3 prize cards in the turn and you can't really come back from that. Sure, you can maybe knock them out at the same time, but they're going to be taking multiple prize cards in the turn after, and it is very difficult to keep up the tempo and keep up with them. Another reason I don't think it's a good idea though to bench Oricorio GX is they could be running Mimikyu. So you might get one ability off, or none if they've already benched it, you've not realised, but you get one ability off and then they play Mimikyu and he is literally dead weight for the entire game. Oricorio is just dead weight. He can be good, he can be clutch in certain situations. If you need a certain card and that's going to get you, say, a KO on a VMAX and that'll win you the game, they have nothing else on the board or something like that, feel free, you can bench Oricorio or draw those free just to do a last ditch dig to get what you need. But most of the time Oricorio is going to be more of a hindrance than a help in this matchup. Right, so one method you're going to want to try to do to be able to win is to try and get a one-hit KO on one of the Dragapult VMax straight off the bat. Spit shot a Dedenne on the bench and then take your last prize card with Blacephalon's GX attack. Although this is massively more easier said than done. A lot of the time, the first time you're going to attack though, they could still have Jirachi in the active position. If they've got Jirachi in the active position, you've not got much more options. You're going to be wanting to Welder that turn. You can't do a Boss's Orders. You can't do a Great Catcher on a VMax. Therefore, you can't take those prize cards early. You need to take that one prize card, and that's not going to help. You take one prize card, they're probably going to come along and take 2 prize cards the next turn. You're behind, and it's going to be difficult to pull it back and swing it back into your favour. But if they do start with Jirachi, it is not the end of the world. You can KO their Jirachi, and then you'll aim for a KO on their VMAX and kind of spit shot a Dedenne. This way, you still should be able to keep ahead on prize cards. So, if you get to attack first, in theory, you can knock out a VMAX. Your opponent then takes 2 prize cards. After that, you spit shot and take another 2 prize cards. Then your opponent takes 2. Then you manage to take the final prize card with your GX attack or KO on a Pokemon. When you attack with Cramorant, he should be fairly safe for a turn or 2. They're only hit for 130 damage, meaning they'll need an additional 70 damage to knock him out. So it'll be difficult for them to get 70 damage through the likes of Giratina and Zigzagoon. Now, it sounds okay on paper, but in practice it's not really like that. If your opponent manages to attack first and they get the first KO, you're going to be at a disadvantage and struggle to bring the prize trade back. If they knock out your Jirachi, you lose a key piece of your draw, and you're going to struggle to get what you need, especially because they run 4 Marnie, and they probably run stamps as well on top of that. So even if you do, say off the bat, manage to KO a VMAX, they Marnie you or reset stamp you, you're going to be struggling to get the cards you need once they've knocked out your Jirachi. Also, Dragapult VMax does have a lot of health. You can one-hit KO them, but a lot of the time, you might not quite make it. You might get a 2-shot on it, but that means you're probably going to lose the game. They'll probably run Mallow and Lana, retreating them, getting the heal off, and just ruining that turn that you've just played. You've just wasted the turn effectively and given them more chance to get more ahead and take more prize cards. And on top of that, your opponent also probably runs Giant Bomb. If you're attacking with Baby Blacephalon, the Giant Bomb goes off. Sure, you're not knocked out, but then they can just do their Zigzagoons or Giratinas, take a prize card before they even attack the next turn, and then they attack, probably take another 2 prize cards. That's 3 prize cards that turn. Or even worse, if you've got a GX, they might even manage to take 4 prize cards that turn. One method you could try and do is to try and outspeed them. You can try and knock out their Dragapult Vs before they get evolved into VMAXs. But that's going to be difficult when you don't run many Boss's Orders, and you can't use Great Catcher against it. You can use normal catchers, but coin flips isn't really reliable. Your opponent's probably going to end the turn with Jirachi in the active spot rather than Dragapult V, meaning they're going to get that extra turn to get him set up. And I've not even touched on Horror Energy. Even if you attack it, like say the Giant Bomb went off and they've got Horror Energy as well, that's you knocked out. That's them got a prize card just for you knocking them out. There is very little you can actually do in this. It is trying to outspeed them, try and get the KOs, and watching out for any Giant Bombs and spell tags. But the reality is, with them doing that bench damage and with you having no way to stop that bench damage, they are probably going to win. You can do your best bet by trying not to put easy targets on the board for them. Don't bench your Jirachi unless you need it. For example, like an additional Jirachi, because that's just going to be an easy KO for them. You might think, oh, it's fine, I'll bench the Jirachi, they can do the 50 damage to them, and then I'll scoop up that Jirachi. But they could be running Mr. Mime, and therefore you are stuck with that, and they are definitely going to get the KO on him. So what can we actually do to try and swing this match up a little bit? We can look at playing Feeny, so that is one way to get out the Pokemon we want. We can try in the beginning knock out the Dragapult Vs, for example, before they get set up. You can run Tool Scrapper to get rid of Giant Bomb and Spell Tag, but I'm not too sure in reality what else you can do. Those will help a lot, like Feeny will probably help a lot, but you're going to really struggle against this. I think it's probably 70-30 in their favour, honestly. It's not bad for them. The only saving grace you have is if they do not get set up, if they can't get their energies to attack, for example. But more than likely they will, and you're probably going to lose just because your Pokemon are a little squishy. They've not got much health. They're going to get knocked out. Now we're going to have a look at Spiritomb and ADP Spiritomb. These are not very positive matchups, especially if it is just straight Spiritomb. I say straight Spiritomb. They've got lots of cards in there. It's not just Spiritomb. But you're more likely to win against ADP Spiritomb rather than Spiritomb, but it's still difficult. The reason for this is, sure, you can take 3 prize cards off of the ADP if you're lucky. That'd be great. You're swinging it a lot in your favour. But if they're able to take extra prize cards off their attacks with their single prize card attackers, you're going to fall behind in the prize trade. The reason Spiritomb is good is they only need 1 energies, and if they get that 1 energy, let's just assume they're probably going to get a KO every turn. Sure, sometimes they've not got enough damage counters on them, but more than likely with Jinx and having multiple Spiritombs in multiple ways, like Rainbow Energy for example, they're going to get those damage counters or their Hustle Belt, and they're definitely going to hit for enough damage to get the KO on you. If you're a 1 prize deck and they are also a 1 prize card deck, usually it comes down to, oh, who gets to attack first, who's got the most consistent deck. Sure, we're consistent, but we generally need a lot of cards to get a KO. We only run 4 Welders, and we've only got Mewtwo to get it back. We could run a Palpad to get it back again, but they only need 1 energy and they've got multiple attackers. They probably have Tapu Fini, for example. They need, again, 1 energy to knock you out, whereas you need to get 3 energies to get the Welder, and then multiple energies again to actually get the knockout. You're going to run out of steam before they do. They're going to be able to consistently attack every turn and probably get a knockout. By the end of the game, you've probably not got enough Welders to get a knockout. Sure, you can get 1 off Blacephalon GX, but if you bench that Blacephalon GX, then they're going to get 2 prize cards, or 3 if they've done ADP, and you're not going to have a good time. So what should you do against this deck? If they've got ADP, a great way is obviously trying to knock that out before they do the GX attack. Easier said than done. If it's not in the active position, you've not got a lot of options to bring it out into the active position. But you could tech in something like I said in the last matchup. I do run a Boss's Orders. You can have a Feeny or something to try and get a knockout on that before it does. If they get off their GX attack, it's okay-ish. You can then still knock them out. So you've taken 3 prize cards, and in theory, your opponent hasn't taken any by this point. Say it's the beginning of the game and they've been focusing on getting that GX attack off. So next turn, your opponent attacks. They take 2 prize cards. Okay, you're still in the lead. At this point, you're likely to be able to kill Spiritomb. You take 1 more. That's you up to 4 prize cards. Your opponent then attacks next turn, gets a knockout. Say it's a single prizer. Again, they took 2 prize cards. Then, oh, wait, next turn it comes to you. You knock out, say, another Spiritomb. That's you at 5 prize cards. They come along, knock out Jirachi or Blacephalon. They've taken 6. It is incredibly difficult to keep up with them being a single prize deck and taking multiple prizes against you rather than 1 prize. So what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? You can try and kill the ADP. You've got 3 prize cards, you're trying, but when you've done that, you can get stamped. You're going to be in a sticky situation. Then you can try, for example, and do Cramorant against a Dedenne, hoping they've had to bench a Dedenne to actually get set up, and then you can hopefully then take 1 prize card off a Spiritomb. You can keep ahead in the prize trade doing that, but if you have to knock out 2 Spiritombs after the ADP, or you don't get the KO on the ADP, you whiff it a little bit, and then they start attacking with Spiritomb, you're probably going to lose. Text for against this, you can go for Feeny, you can go for Tool Scrapper, but the Tool Scrapper I don't think is too important. Like, they can KO you with or without the Hustle Belt. And again, I wouldn't bench too many GX Pokemon unless you absolutely need them or they're crucial to getting what you need. Because if they can take 3 prize cards off a GX, you're not going to pull it back, unfortunately. It is very much in their favour. It's difficult to keep up the momentum that they have got. They're taking multiple prize cards before you. Your only hope is really if they don't get set up. If they can't get the ADP off, you could have some advantage if you manage to knock it out before they do the GX attack. But if they don't bench ADP and they go straight Spiritomb, you're probably going to lose. You run out of momentum before the end because you need 3 energies to attack. Cramorant needs 3 energies. Blacephalon needs 3 energies. Your only one that attacks for less is Blacephalon GX and Victini. Victini still needs 2. But he does at least get all your energies back, so that does help a little bit. But you're going to run out of welders. You can't run 6 welders, unfortunately. You can try Mewtwo for the best of your ability. In reality, with them only needing 1 energy rather than you needing 3 attachments plus the additional energy to get the knockouts, they're going to be winning in terms of the prize trade, unfortunately. The only ways I've really won against ADP Spiritomb with this deck is managing to get the knockout on the GX and them missing a knockout. They have to miss a knockout. That is the only way. If you manage to get rid of, say, their Spiritombs and they've not got another Spiritomb with enough damage counters to attack, or they didn't get Tapu Fini. But the reality is, if they've got set up properly and they get the GX off, you're going to have a bad time. Even if they're not running the ADP variant, they're running the regular Spiritomb variant. They've got Tapu Fini plus the Spiritombs. They've probably got more effective attackers than you. All of them can knock you out for 1 energy. They can knock out the Blacephalon GX for 1 energy as well. And you're just really going to struggle to get all the energies you need every turn to take out 6 Pokemon, to take 6 prize cards that way compared to them needing 1 energy. And they're going to have that 1 energy every turn and get you. It's pretty much in their favour. You can get lucky if they don't get set up. Apart from that, you're probably going to lose. Now we're going to be taking a look at Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX. Now, this matchup is mostly in your favour because they are a tag team deck and you are a 1 prize card deck. It has a lot of tricks up its sleeve. It can maybe catch you out sometimes, but fundamentally, their main attacker gives up 3 prize cards. Even if they choose not to attack with Mewtwo and Mew, maybe they're just attacking with GX, that is still a 2 prize card attacker. Mewtwo does have a lot of health, 270, but I find usually you still can 1-hit KO. If you're going with your little Baby Blacephalon and you manage to KO that Mewtwo, then you can Cramorant to Spit Shot on a Dedenne on the bench, and then you just need your main strategy of the Blacephalon GX at the end to just go and take your final prize card. I don't really feel I need to cover much with covering Mewtwo. It is a very simple strategy. You can either knock out, it's kind of like PikaRom but a bit easier. You can knock out 2 Mew and Mewtwo GX or 2 tag teams if they've somehow got another tag team in there. If they got, say, Reshiram and Charizard GX. Or take out their tag team plus a Dedenne on the bench. They're going to have to bench Dedennes. That's how they get set up. They're Welder and Dedenne. And then Blacephalon GX to take your final prize card. Or Blacephalon's prize, then you attack with Baby Blacephalon again. You've got multiple turns to do this. Your opponent could maybe run a variant where they can heal, so you're wanting to aim for 1-hit KOs, but if you can't get 1-hit KOs, say it takes you 2 shots to knock out a Mewtwo, you're still taking 3 prize cards when they've probably only taken 2. There really isn't too much to this matchup. You just need to keep up the momentum, make sure you get a good setup, you thinned your deck effectively, and you don't use your resources too soon. A good hint for all the matchups is don't use your fire crystals or energy retrievals unless you actually need it. There's no point in you firing crystal and thinking I'll get some energies for next turn, and then your opponent turns around and plays a Marnie or a reset stamp and oh, I've just lost those energies into my deck. If I get another fire crystal, oh well, they're not in my discard anymore, they're back in my deck. Sure, you can maybe do that if you know your opponent runs a deck that doesn't run any Marnies or reset stamps if you need those energies to Welder for next turn, but I prefer to keep them for when you need it. You never know when your hand's going to get disrupted and you're going to need those specific cards. Overall, if you see that tag team deck, Mewtwo and Mew, it is a good deck, it is Welder. Sometimes they can just outspeed you. If you don't get set up before they do, they could just start taking KOs and winning. If they KO all your Jirachis or get rid of your Blacephalons before you actually manage to get attack off and KO them, they could win. But a lot of the time, you're going to win in the prize trade. They don't really have any one prize card attackers. It is all those big hitters for 3 prize cards, and they're quite easy for you to KO and get the knockout and just straight up win the game. Strategy for this deck, kill, kill, kill. The most simplest strategies for this, the main strategy of the deck, kill the big guy, Cramorant Dedenne, take your prize card with your GX attack. Or kill 2 tag teams, simple. Now, Welder Box. You're going to do well against Welder Box. Why are you going to do well? Well, a lot of their Pokemon are GX. I say a lot. One of their main attackers is Heatran GX. Even if they go throughout their game and they decide, nope, I'm going to attack with, say, like little Volcanions, little Turtonators, and try and avoid the GX, they're still probably going to have to bench a Dedenne to get set up. They're relying on the Dedenne Welder engine, and that works massively in your favour with Cramorant and even just with Blacephalon. Another reason this matchup is pretty good is because the cards they need to set up also help you. They're going to be playing Giant Hearth. Oh great, I can get more energies in my hand. Heat Factory. Oh great, double Heat Factory. They use yours, you put down Ultra Space another turn to get another Heat Factory. Sure, these help them, but they also help you. And you're a 1 prize card deck, so in reality, you're probably going to swing it. It is purely that. If they're attacking mostly with their Heatran GX, you're going to take 2 prize cards off that, and they're only going to knock out your Baby Blacephalon. Don't bench your Zacian. You see fire, don't bench your Zacian. Sure, they might not be able to bring it up, but they will. They'll get an easy KO on Zacian. Don't bother with him in this matchup whatsoever. Things to watch out for are the Ninetales. They don't need their boss's orders or anything like that, so if you ended up with a GX attack, you started with a Dedenne GX, you were unfortunate, you started with that, you managed to retreat them, they're probably going to Ninetales and take an easy KO on that. That is a way for them to bring the matchup back a little bit. You're going to have to be very careful and considerate with your GXs and your Vs. Personally, I'd like to take a KO on, say, like the Heatran, for example, take 2 prize cards, and then do the same again. They're maybe knock out a Blacephalon, even if they get a GX. You try and take out another 2 prize cards on another Heatran. Or, imagine they run Reshijar, that'd be tasty, but they probably won't. Or a Dedenne, try and bring up a Dedenne to knock it out, and then try and do your Cramorant Spit Shot. You might have to take more turns against this deck because they don't run many GXs. Probably only run 2 Heatrans, and then they'll see what they're up against. Oh, we're up against Blacephalon. Let's not use my GX attackers. Let's use Turtonator. Let's use Victini Prism, for example. So it's probably going to take you a few more turns. But if you can get 1 KO, 1 or 2 KOs against, say, Dedenne GX, any GX Pokemon in their deck, then you're going to be in a much more favourable position. The likeliness is as well that they might need to bench Eldegoss V to try and get a supporter card they need to keep in the game. That would be great for you if you have boss's orders or something like that. That is a massively easy KO for you to get because of the fire weakness, just swinging it into your favour. It's going to be quite difficult for them to win. You both run the same kind of engine, you both run the same kind of support cards, but you just need a basic Pokemon. You don't need to bench all those Dedennes. They've got 3-4 Dedennes. They need that to get all the cards they need to get set up usually. Your opponent is going to try and just stick to 1 prize card attackers, but they don't have that many. And that'll come down to who gets to attack first, and the likeliness is they probably will do a Dedenne. If you try and be very careful with what GX Pokemon you bench, 2 prize cards that you bench, then you should hopefully be able to swing and win the matchup. If the less 1 prize card attackers they have, great. It is likely they're probably going to have to bench at least 1 or 2 GXs during that game, and that makes it so that you're more likely to win if you keep your GX benches to a minimum, because they'd have that Ninetales. You don't want to risk it. Sure, Oricorio is great. You're like, oh, they took an easy knockout. I'll draw 3 cards off Oricorio. But if they can just bring out Oricorio and one-shot him, it just wasn't worth it. Your Jirachis will be enough. In theory. Cinccino Mill. You have Victini Prism Star. That'll help. That'll prolong the inevitable. You've got your energy back. The only way to win this is obviously to take all the... You're just going to lose. You're just going to lose. Even with Victini. Against this deck, it's going to be incredibly difficult to take 6 prize cards before they manage to deck you out. You're needing Welders. Oh, that's drawing cards. If you need something like Oricorio to draw more cards to get what you need, it's going to be insanely difficult. They've got a lot of energy discards. Sure, you've got fire crystals and things like that to bring back your energy. But that's not going to be good enough. Like, they're going to keep discarding, keep discarding, keep discarding. The way I've won against this deck in the past is purely through Blacephalon's speed, managing to get the KOs before they actually get to the end of their deck and doing the strategy, and I've managed to mill me enough. Victini Prism Star is a massive help against this. You think, we're getting to the point where we're getting decked out, Victini can help us get all those fire energy back in so that we can keep continuing to attack. But it's incredibly difficult when they run Lily's Pokédolls. I see Cinccino Mill, I just sigh massively, like, I don't want to sit here for half an hour and play against this deck. Just, you can sit there and play and try and get the KOs. They don't run any GXs, really. You're going to have to knock out the Cincinos. They do have Zacian. A strategy you can try and take is they're probably going to have a Zacian bench. That's a nice 2 prize cards. That's a good way to get 2 prize cards. Then you only need to, in theory, knock out 4 Cincinos. But the issue is Lily's Pokédoll. Lily's Pokédoll massively gets in the way. You think, right, it's fine, I can get my Welders, I can all get set up. But you're not getting any prize cards off those Lily's Pokédoll. But the good thing about this is they're not generally going to be attacking you in return. So if you've got your 3 prize cards on your Blacephalon, they might try and Crushing Hammer them off of you. That would suck. But you're not having to get the Welder necessarily next turn. You've still got your attacker there. You can knock out the Lily's Pokédoll and hopefully the turn after knock out Cinccino and get your 3rd prize card and then go and try and get your 4th, 5th and 6th. It's incredibly difficult. You need to try and outspeed them before they can get you to the end of your deck. It is very tedious and long. Something you need to watch out for is Persian. You might think, right, I've got a good hand, I've got a good thing going here. I'll wait a turn or 2 and then I'll probably hopefully be able to take my last or second last prize card. If Persian comes along, they can discard as many cards as they want from your hand until you've only got 4 left. They're going to get rid of all the key cards that they need to get off of the mill so that you do not have the components you need to win. This is why this matchup is so difficult. It's because you don't know what's going to get discarded off the top of your deck. They could just get rid of all your Welders, all your attackers, all the little key components of the puzzle that you need. How would I win against this? Pure luck rather than judgment. I'd rather just go, nah, concede. Move on. In conclusion, that was a little look at Baby Blowns. We went over some deck lists, a general rough strategy on how to play the deck, and a rough strategy against most of the main decks in the meta. If you disagree with anything, that is fine. I am not perfect. I am not a genius at this game. I've been playing a while, but I'm still getting better. If you've got any better strategies, any better tech cards, or anything else you want to say, feel free to go into the comments below and make your views known. I'm hopefully going to be doing this same kind of format video for the rest of the decks in the format. I'll probably do PikaRom next, go for Obstagoon, things like that. Zacian, I do have those cards for Zacian online now, so I can play some more games with that, get a bit more practice. But hopefully you enjoyed something, hopefully you learned something, and we'll just leave it there. We got a sleepy dog. Hey Neko. Hello. Yeah. Is that your bone? Yeah, that's your bone. And we've also got a kitty here. You can't quite see him. Kitty, you want to come over here? No. Will I move the webcam? Kitty. Yeah. Look at here. Yeah. Kitty cat.